For more than 4 centuries, Mary, Queen of Scots, seemed trapped inside the story others had written for her. To some, she was a reckless monarch whose choices destroyed her throne. To others, she was a tragic Catholic queen crushed by the colder and more calculating Elizabeth I. Historians had her public letters, intercepted messages, trial records, and the testimony of enemies. Yet part of Mary's voice was missing. There appeared to be a gap in her correspondence during some of the most important years of her captivity. Then, in 2023, that gap suddenly began to close. An international team of codebreakers announced that it had discovered and deciphered 57 encrypted letters written during Mary's imprisonment in England. Most were addressed to Michel de Castelnau, the French ambassador at Elizabeth's court, and dated from 1578 to 1584. Only 7 were already known through copies or transcripts. Roughly 50 had effectively vanished from the historical record, even though the original pages had been sitting for years in the Bibliothèque nationale de France. Together, the deciphered material amounted to about 50,000 words, an extraordinary addition to the surviving voice of one of Europe's most famous queens. The letters had not been hidden in a locked chest or buried beneath a castle floor. Their hiding place was less dramatic, but more effective. A library catalog. They were mixed among papers classified as Italian documents from the early 16th century. The pages contained streams of strange symbols, with no clear author, recipient, date, or subject. To anyone searching specifically for Mary Stuart's correspondence, they did not look like her letters. The discovery began with 3 men whose backgrounds sound like the beginning of a mystery. George Lazary, a computer scientist and cryptographer, Norbert Biermann, a pianist and music professor, and Satoshi Tomokio, a physicist and patents expert. They were not searching only for Mary. They were examining undeciphered historical documents as part of a wider effort to locate and unlock old ciphers. Their first problem was turning thousands of handwritten signs into data a computer could process. The scale of the task was enormous. The letters contained around 150,000 symbols and roughly 200 different sign types. The team used a computer-assisted method known as hill climbing, in which software repeatedly tests possible cipher keys and keeps changes that produce more plausible language. At first, the catalog description led them toward Italian. That approach failed. When they tested French, recognizable fragments appeared. Even then, the machine recovered only part of the text. Much of the remaining work had to be done manually through pattern recognition, linguistic reasoning, and the slow reconstruction of Mary's cipher system. The code was designed to frustrate frequency analysis used against simple substitution ciphers. A single letter could be represented by several different symbols, making patterns harder to spot. Other signs stood for names, places, common words, or entire expressions. Some symbols modified what came before them. This was a sophisticated diplomatic cipher created for a woman who understood that a careless sentence could cost her allies, her freedom, and eventually her life. But how did the codebreakers know the writer was Mary? The answer emerged gradually. Phrases meaning "my son" and "my freedom" suggested an imprisoned mother of high status. Political names appeared. Then, the team identified Walsingham, referring to Sir Francis Walsingham, Elizabeth I's powerful secretary and spy master. That was the moment the puzzle changed. The researchers compared their results with material preserved in British archives and found matches with 7 letters already associated with Mary. The anonymous prisoner behind the symbols was no longer anonymous. To understand why the letters mattered, it is necessary to remember how Mary ended up writing in code. She became Queen of Scotland when she was only 6 days old. Raised largely in France, she married the French heir and briefly became Queen Consort of France. After her young husband died, she returned to Scotland, where religious division, noble rivalries, and her controversial marriages weakened her rule. In 1567, Scottish nobles forced Mary to abdicate in favor of her infant son, James VI. After escaping confinement and losing a final attempt to recover power, she fled into England in 1568. She expected help from Elizabeth, her cousin and fellow monarch. Instead, Elizabeth treated her as a dangerous political problem. Mary was Catholic, had Tudor blood, and was regarded by many Catholics as the rightful claimant to the English throne. Freeing her could invite rebellion. Sending her abroad could allow foreign powers to use her against England. Returning her to Scotland was equally risky, so Elizabeth kept her under guard for nearly 19 years. Captivity did not make Mary politically silent. She continued to write, negotiate, complain, persuade, reward, pressure, and scheme. The newly deciphered letters show her trying to influence events from rooms she was not permitted to leave. She asked Castelnau to press Elizabeth for her release. She discussed her health, the conditions of her imprisonment, money, allies, European diplomacy, and the future of her son. She followed English and Scottish politics closely and gave instructions about what information should be revealed, how it should be presented, and which officials might be approached. This is perhaps the most important change produced by the discovery. Decoded Mary is not a helpless queen begging to be saved. She is a political operator working with a terrible hand and still trying to control the game. Historian Estelle Perronc, who has been translating and placing the letters in context, argues that they reveal a more intelligent, direct, and politically informed Mary than the one visible in her public correspondence. In the secret letters, Mary is giving orders, assessing personalities, and attempting to shape policy through the French ambassador and her wider network. That does not mean the letters prove Mary was an innocent victim, nor do they erase the mistakes that contributed to her downfall. They also do not provide a simple confession to the later Babington plot, the Catholic conspiracy that brought about her trial and execution. The newly decoded collection ends in 1584, 2 years before that plot. What it does show is the political world in which the final disaster developed, a captive queen who believed negotiation had failed, an English government convinced she remained dangerous, foreign powers circling the conflict, and spies feeding on every secret channel. Walsingham understood that correspondence was Mary's lifeline. He also understood that it could become a weapon against her. By the 1580s, leaks from the French embassy were supplying English intelligence with copies of some letters. Later, during the Babington plot, Mary's encrypted communications were secretly intercepted and deciphered. Evidence drawn from those messages helped the English government prosecute her for treason. Mary denied authorizing Elizabeth's assassination, but she was convicted and beheaded at Fotheringhay Castle on February 8, 1587. Her dependence on secret writing had allowed her to remain politically active, yet it also created the evidence her enemies needed. There is a strange irony in the survival of these letters. Mary used a cipher because she wanted her words to disappear from hostile eyes. The code worked so well that it hid them not merely from Elizabeth's officials, but from generations of historians. They remained unread, while Mary's reputation hardened into familiar shapes: romantic martyr, foolish ruler, Catholic threat, murdered queen. Now her symbols speak again. The letters do not rescue Mary from controversy. They make her more complicated, which is far more valuable. They reveal a woman isolated but not passive, frightened but still calculating, physically confined yet mentally present in the politics of three kingdoms. They show the exhausting detail of survival, asking for help, tracking loyalties, managing information, and searching for any opening that might lead back to power or freedom. Perhaps that is why the discovery feels so powerful. It is not merely a case of modern technology solving an old puzzle. It is the recovery of a human voice that had been reduced to marks nobody understood. For centuries, the pages looked silent. In reality, Mary had been speaking the entire time. We had simply lost the ability to listen. What do Mary's lost letters reveal? Share your thoughts below and like and subscribe for more hidden history.